Doubling down on GameStop, Reddit Keith Gill, also known as the Roaring Kitty, reportedly buying 50,000 more shares of GameStop, doubling his investment after telling lawmakers Thursday he was as bullish as I've ever been about a potential turnaround. Joining me right now is former SEC Division of Enforcement Senior Counsel and Seward and Kissel Counsel Philip Moustakis. Philip, it's good to have you this morning. Thanks very much for joining us. Tell us how you see this. A lot of conversation about what has taken place here, but now you've got Reddit doubling down. How would you assess this?
Good morning, and thanks for having me. Well, in many ways, Keith Gill, also known as Roaring Kitty on YouTube and by a more colorful name on Reddit, could be compared to a traditional value investor who takes a position in a stock and then tells whomever will listen why it is undervalued and a good buy. But instead of appearing on Fox Business News, you can find him on YouTube or TikTok or Reddit, at least before recent events. Now, of course, we're talking about him on this program. But I'm not at all surprised to learn that he's buying more. It's always been his position.
You don't see this as a pump and dump scheme. Do you see any issues around here, around this, that you would anticipate new regulations coming out of Thursday's hearing?
Well, I think there's two things we need to talk about. One is whether or not there would be new regulations. The other is what the enforcement division at the SEC may do. In terms of new regulations, I don't think new regulations are the answers. The SEC has always been a principles-based regulator. It will investigate market manipulation, whatever form it may take, in whatever form, and whatever the technology used. If you draft new rules or regulations in response to every novel situation, those rules will inevitably be too specific to that situation, meaning they'll be difficult to apply or enforce in other situations or other forms of manipulation in the future that lawmakers cannot anticipate today. In my view, the SEC already has all the tools it needs to investigate this.
So what about these lawsuits about, targeting Robinhood, saying that the individual investor wanted to trade those stocks, and they're upset about the restrictions that were put in place? We're going to hear from one lawyer dealing with a class action suit later in the program who said they wanted to keep trading GameStop, and they couldn't.
Well, in a very public way, the SEC has already said that that's one of the three aspects of this affair that they are investigating, meaning the decision by the trading platforms to restrict trading in the meme stocks, including GameStop. They've also said they're going to look at issuer insiders to make sure that they weren't taking advantage of the market dislocation. And of course, they're going to look at the market manipulation aspect of it. Now, as I mentioned, I think Keith Gill is very much in the position of a traditional value investor, but that doesn't mean that bad actors didn't take advantage of the frenzy to move in and then start disseminating false and misleading information on Wall Street Bets or elsewhere on Reddit or elsewhere on the internet in order to pump these stocks. And that's one of the things that the enforcement division will most certainly look at.
So what about the future of the SEC? President Biden has tapped Gary Gensler as his pick to lead the SEC. Gensler previously served as the chairman of the Commodities Futures Trading Commission under President Obama. What do you expect the SEC to look like in the Biden administration, and what will their focus be?
Well, Gary Gensler was known as a very strong enforcer while he was at the CFTC. I assume he would bring the same enforcement or pro-enforcement attitude to the SEC. I think it'll bring a new pep in the step to enforcement attorneys there. I think we should expect to see a return to the broken window style of enforcement that the SEC had under Mary Jo White, where there's a focus on financial institutions, on investment advisors, investment banks, on broker-dealers, what might traditionally be considered the gatekeepers of the industry. And small violations will be prosecuted under the theory that if you prosecute the small ones, it has a militating effect against the occurrence of larger, more problematic issues.
What do you mean about broken windows under Mary Jo White?
I mean that under the last administration, there was more of a focus on fraud, more of a focus on man on the street, what I would call man on the street frauds, Ponzi schemes, pump and dumps, the kinds of things that affect retail investors, as opposed to prosecuting rule violations, say violations of Reg Show in the short selling context, or violations in the net capital rule, which may become of interest coming out of the GameStop affair. Under the theory that if you prosecute those small violations, it has a prophylactic effect against larger issues blossoming up.
Makes sense. Philip, it's good to get your insights this morning. Thank you, sir. Philip Moustakis joining us, former SEC exec.